So, how do you approach adapting comic book characters to the small screen for a show like Moon Knight?
I think it was really interesting for me because, I didn't know the Marvel world very well. I'd only ever worked on Spider-Man before, and they were great because, working with in the Marvel universe, certainly with Oscar Isaac, and there was a lot of freedom. I didn't think there would be, and there really was, keeping a base in reality. And Oscar's such a collaborative guy, and Grant Curtis, everybody there, we wanted to make him look as authentic as possible, and do, I think, treat it respectfully for a character who has this disassociated, the personality, just that he's a character that you believe has this diagnosis, and the way he lives, and it's not extreme, and there's very subtle changes. And I actually had people write to me who have been diagnosed with this condition. So I was very happy that people identified with it and suffer from this and have been treated for it. And that was all about mental health, right? And that was very important, and to me as well as to Oscar.
What were some of the specific things you did? Because you had three different personalities. So kind of what were the things where when you saw him on screen, you knew, okay, this is the assassin, this is the taxi driver, this is just the regular guy who works at a museum?
Well, I mean, for Mark and Steven, and the stuff, when he's living at home where he chains himself up to see what's happened at night. I mean, you have cases of that happening to people, right? What I like to do was where he's very where he's not slept and he's insomniac and he looks kind of wrecked. When you see him very kind of, I call it the jet lag look, very dark circles under the eyes, red, sweaty, kind of a sickly look to him, a paranoid. That's real. And it happens in the course of the same day. So sometimes people think, somebody said, what kind of makeup change is he going to have? Like kind of Jekyll and Hyde, because it kind of is a sort of, there's a parallel to that. This has to be respectful as well. You can't suddenly turn into something unrecognizable. You can't grow a beard. It's within the temperature of the character happens within minutes, which is what happens to people where they're nauseous. They have a sweat. There's anxiety. There's people going through a hallucination, that kind of thing. And that's what we did. That kept one very kind of held together and one sort of losing touch with reality.
It's also a very violent show. And so, I'm wondering, it always seems like it's a challenge to kind of make blood and wounds look realistic with the, higher and higher quality of cameras and that kind of a thing. So, what was that like?
It was a lot of fun. I'm sorry I interrupted you. It was a lot of fun because, again, I thought maybe in that universe, which I wasn't as familiar with, that they would either CG or, digitally put a lot of that in, and it wasn't. It was really practical makeup, which I'm a real proponent of. And so when we had Ethan Hawke wounded or, his head split open, or Oscar, things like that, we did it practically right on the day. That was a lot of fun. We had some other things, merging people, the twins, things like that. So it was a very practical makeup show, the tattoo, things like that. That was a lot of fun to do. And they were very welcoming and open to it.
It seems to me like just the nature of the characters, it's kind of rough and ready, kick butt with whatever you have with your own hands. So, it makes sense that the wounds and the blood and all that would be actual, and I'm sure it helps Isaac get into the character as well when he's, all covered with wounds and blood and he's like coming out of like, what the heck,
Well, I think it's more cinematic. I mean, it's great that on TV and streaming that Yeah, yeah. I think it's great that you see that on TV now, on streaming shows that look more like movies, and that's why I did it. You know, that it looks with feature quality that you're seeing on streaming television shows. So it takes away that, and it's got, you know, epic production values. The production design, the costumes, everything about it had, you know, we did the doubles. You know, we spent time to prep it, and I think it well, I think I hope it showed, but I felt like it had production values in it you don't see often.
Yeah. What's the difference in working on like a serialized show versus a movie in terms of hair and makeup?
Well, you know, I think you get to develop the character, you know, you've got a little bit more time. So instead of something you do as a 2-hour kind of extravaganza, it becomes, you know, 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours. So you have a little bit more time to expand on it. Or where do you take the character over? Where do you take the character over a period of time? How do you start? How do you finish? Like with May, for instance, you know, with her character, how do we, you know, what do you do with her without giving too much away? Or with Oscar even, and that, you know, introducing the Jake character, which is exciting because I mean, I'd hoped for a season 2. I don't know where that stands, or a movie or something. I really enjoyed working on it, to be honest with you. And I think at first it was new territory, but now that I've done it, I think getting to expand on a character, or working, designing the hair and the makeup and the prosthetics, there's a lot of things to try and look forward to. Even with the parents, we made them look older, then we made them look younger. Then you have the kids, then you've got to, like, how do we make that kid look more like Oscar? Put a wave in his hair. Or the mom. Are we going to do contact lenses? We had a lot of like fun things to do, which people don't realize. We put a lot of thought into it, for something like that.
And I'm hoping there's going to be a season 2. Would you return as hair and makeup person for season 2?
I would love to. I had a great time. I really liked that cast, and certainly working for Marvel and that whole, you know, Muhammad and you know, our directors with 3. I really enjoyed the guys very much. I'd be very happy to go back. Yeah, I would. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And then I just have a couple questions about The Covenant. It's your first Guy Ritchie film. What was it like working with Guy Ritchie?
You know, he's a very nice guy as a character. You know, I've seen his films obviously over the years, and they have a great style. And you know, it's something, again, it's different for me. When Jake Gyllenhaal called me and mentioned it to me, I thought, really, a guy, you know, Guy Ritchie. A couple of colleagues of mine from the UK had worked on a lot of his films, and I thought they were great and fun and fast. And I have to say, at first I was a little bit hesitant because we're really under very strict COVID protocols, and pandemic was bad. I mean, people were just getting vaccinations. We were still under travel restrictions. You remember trying to get on a plane, like,
Oh, yeah.
must be vaccinated, tested 24 hours before for certain countries. This was shooting in Spain. I had to prep it by myself virtually with one coordinator in the UK, like in a week, get a stunt double for Jake's wig made in London with the help of my coordinator. You know, it was tough. It was really tough. Finding an experienced crew was nearly impossible. So I went with a lot of newbies, a lot of very junior rookie people. So it was hard. However, I like the way Guy works. He knows what he wants. The looks were simple, straightforward, but it required like a good eye to say, look, we're going to keep this simple. We're shooting 10-hour days. It's COVID. I cannot lose the opportunity. We're shooting from, 7 a.m. to, 5 p.m., no lunch break, rolling lunches, in and out. I don't want makeup and hair changes. This is what we're doing. Understood. Everyone has to be along for this ride. And I kind of love that. It took me back to the early days of when I started. And I think it was a great experience for that. Ed Wild shooting it and Lulu doing costumes. I think it was refreshing for me to be on something like that. I loved it. I really loved it. Jake Darsalim, actors I wasn't familiar with, were fantastic. A great story that meant a lot to a lot of people, and that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, I love Guy Ritchie movies. He's got a very, very distinct style.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool. I've loved all of his movies. Were there any complications presented? You said it was during COVID, so were people having to wear masks in between takes? Was
Yeah.
that thing with makeup?
Yeah. So well, the biggest complication week one, day one, guess what? Yours truly, COVID.
Oh,
The
no.
first time I made it through a couple of movies. I made it through, Dune Part 1 reshoots without COVID. I made it through The Guilty with no COVID. And then here we were. And that was the variant, wasn't it? I got sick. I had a very junior rookie crew. No idea what they were really in for. Not their fault. My fault for couldn't find anybody. I couldn't find a crew in Spain. That was hard, directing people in hair and makeup by phone. Very stressful. But I made it through the rest of the film. Jake is good thing he really knows how to, help get his makeup and hair done. And Darceline, very straightforward. The guys hadn't started working yet. We didn't have to do too much in doubles or anything. I had the wigs doubles made. Yeah, almost everyone had COVID on that film. We were wearing masks, making people up. Luckily, we were outside a lot. Well, as you can see, like 95% of that film was still under strict protocols. It was exhausting, and it was only 10-hour days. And I think Guy did an incredible job with all of that, trying to ship anything in, That's why we kept the makeups very simple, a little bit of blood here and there, very practical. Trying to create the background was harder, making them look, even though we had people of Persian and Middle Eastern origins and ethnicities, in Spain, but trying to recreate that look with facial hair and longer hair and the women to, without sort of modern eyebrows and nails and things was harder to kind of recreate in Spain. Today was harder to do, as with very little time to prep the men, saying, this can't happen before Christmas, telling extras casting, tell all these guys, do not shave, do not cut your hair. And women to come and please don't have crazy eyebrows or, plastered on makeup or nail polish. We can't get off because we have half hour to get 150 people ready. So, what you don't see takes a lot of time. And there were a lot of challenges in that. But I think the things you don't see are often very challenging.
And what was that working dynamic like with Guy Ritchie? Did he kind of up front, like you said, he kind of had this vision, this idea, and then he just go with it? Or is he kind of like in and out throughout the whole thing, kind of, or let you do your thing?
What I really respect about him a lot, actually, is that he's, no muss, no fuss. You don't have all these meetings with him to have a meeting, which a lot of people in Hollywood do. You just have a meeting to set the look, and he'll say things like, I don't want Shakespeare too tidy. I don't need him to look too pretty. Or is he happy? Talked about him having a burn to indicate in his past. So we decided, let's not do that, because the story is not about Dara's past having been burned. It's about what's happened to him and not about makeup on him. And you get very little time with Guy because he's really dealing with shooting this. So I really like that. And he really does leave you. I had a couple of notes about, we want them real, authentic, dirty, dusty, nobody groomed. And I went with that. And I never got a note from him. And that's the highest compliment I could ever, as a hair makeup designer, be given, that I didn't get a note from my director. And that you're left, people stay in their lane and they allow you to do your job, because it's very hard these days to be on a film, as people listening will know, no matter what you do, whether it's costume design or makeup or hair or set decorating, art direction, everybody seems to be involved in what you do.
That's great. I just have one more question for you. What is a question that you've never been asked in all these interviews that you've done that you wish people would ask, and what's your answer to that?
Wow. You're the first person to ever ask me that.
Yes.
You're the first to ever. That's fantastic. You're the real deal. You are the real McCoy, as they say, right? That's a great. I don't really know how to answer it because I feel I'm gonna, be forever on the record. I know people want to be asked things like what's changed, and be very great good friend of mine. I think one of the greatest actors I ever worked with, actress says, no, we don't say that anymore, do we? Had said to me, it's all snakes and ladders, which I guess it is. But I wished I'd learned that much earlier on in my career. I think you have to continue teaching and mentoring, which I believe in, but I think we've come to a crossroads. I think the pushback has to happen now. And it's something, I guess you become your father or your mother's son at a certain point in your life that I wished I'd taken. I think there's responsibility more people need to take and stand up. Always done that at a great personal cost, particularly right now. And I'm glad I did it, and I'll do it again. I think to take that stand to say that we either continue and mentor and teach people, but there's also a lot of not great things going on out there where are not learning, and the discipline, I think, is diminishing across the board. And I've seen that on the last couple of jobs I've been on, and it makes me really not enjoy the business. And I think you probably hear that from a lot of people. And it makes me very sad and not bitter, because I'm not a bitter person, but it makes me very disillusioned that there's many people much better at what they do, but I still think I've got in it. And there's very few of us who can say that I made my living since I was 19, 20 years old doing this. I've never done any other job. I've paid my rent. I have a career making movies. So I think I've earned the right to say that. And I don't think there's enough people saying that. I guess that's what I wanted to say. That we're not being respected in the industry to be able to. Sure.
You went away for a minute there.
I guess I lost you there. Sorry about that. I thought it was a great answer too. I was like, damn, I wish I did that all the time.
I heard most of that you've been working since you're 19, doing the same thing in the industry. And just
I think what I'm getting at is I think a lot of us, my group, not just in what I do, but costume designers, directors, writers, I think there's a lot of people feel the same way who just aren't saying it for fear of repercussion. And I think we have to start to say there's something's gone wrong, and that we have to, if the business, the business is not getting better, it's getting worse. And we have to be able to start expressing that. People won't learn if they don't have people like us pass it on, right? And yeah. I hear this across the board in all kinds of professions and vocations, and so I think that's what I wanted. I wanted to be remembered for that, of being, I've given a lot of time for, it's not just been for the money. And I think that we're being a bit forgotten in the industry for giving a lot of ourselves and our health and our well-being for many, many years. So, and that's a question I don't get asked about. It's like, who's your favorite actor? Who's your favorite director? What's your favorite thing? And I think surviving in the business without totally losing your mind or wanting to really say what you feel is a very hard thing sometimes.
Right. Well, and I mean, there's so much institutional knowledge there.
That's right.
That it should be passed on. And if you think something is not right, then you can help make people better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, I think it's a big part of it for me.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time. Been trying to get this interview for a while, actually, a few previous times, so I'm glad it finally worked out.
My pleasure. Thanks for doing that.